Wow, welcome. I just have to say, I feel like a warm hug from you all in this room. We had no idea who was going to come or how many people were going to come to this event. And to see people from every generation having fun, catching up with neighbors, it just warms my heart. It reminds me of why I decided to commit my time to this work 2 years ago after the flood. Because we have an opportunity. I feel the opportunity today in the room with you all. We have an opportunity to let something like this disaster just strengthen our resolve to build community and have a more resilient Montpelier. So, yay, I'm excited. Yes. So thank you so much for being here and for your commitment. So why are we here? It's actually been 2 years, folks. Isn't that unbelievable? 2 years, I know. And so just to remind us, memory lane for a minute, we've gathered before. When the flood hit, we had 3 public forums. We gathered at Alumni Hall, we gathered at the high school, we gathered at the State House, and from those public forums, what I really feel like we did, we listened, we shared, and we decided we were going to look towards a more resilient future for Montpelier and started grappling with the hard questions. What does a more resilient Montpelier look like? And so what I really think we did in those public forums is we made a commitment, all of us, to do this work together for whatever it takes, as long as it takes, and keep that commitment. And so to see you all here today, 2 years later, is remarkable. Shows us that we have a strong commitment and we really can do this. And so from those public forums arose the commission, Montpelier Commission for Resiliency and Recovery. So by the way, I'm Allie Richards. I'm going to be your MC tonight, and I'm the co-chair of that commission. And it has been 2 years of us doing this work together. And so we broke our work into 3 categories that really emerged from the public input, especially from those public forums. And we're going to break down our discussion tonight in those 3 buckets. And we're going to squeeze this into as short of 45 minutes as we possibly can. I hope you all are fed and feeling comfortable. And 45 minutes is actually not a lot of time to delve too deeply. So if you want to have more information, stick around, find a commission member, find us after today as well. But we're going to do our best to keep this short and sweet and move into these 3 buckets. And so we're going to start with, when the flood strikes, the first place you go is to the water. And our first bucket of work that we really tackled as a commission is watershed. So I'm going to introduce Michelle Braun from the Friends of the Winooski River, who has been a fantastic partner in building connections across the watershed in support of all of us the last 2 years. Michelle, come on up.
Hi, I'm Michelle Braun. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of the Winooski River. Our office, louder. Hi, is that better? All right. Our office is just down the hall here, and I've been asked to talk to you about the Winooski Flood Resilience Collaborative. One of the top flood recovery and resilience priorities identified through the public process that Allie mentioned was to engage in regional conversations, because we can't solve the flood resilience challenge that Montpelier has alone. Our community needs to be in conversation with upstream and downstream neighbors. So the Montpelier Commission took a lead role in working with partners to coordinate 2 convenings of more than 60 municipal leaders from 24 places across the Winooski River watershed, from Winooski to Cabot to Stowe to Brookfield and everywhere in between. These gatherings gave our watershed community leaders the opportunity to share the challenges and successes and to learn new things about managing our relationships with rivers, and to look for ways to work together to more effectively navigate climate adaptation. With a lot of feedback and a lot of enthusiasm from participants, we named this initiative the Winooski Flood Resilience Collaborative and agreed that it needs to continue. Since Friends of the Winooski River has been working throughout the watershed on public engagement, and ecological restoration for 30 years, working for clean water, healthy habitat, and flood resilience, that means that we have deep knowledge and experience in the kinds of work that will be needed and how it can be funded. So we have stepped up to lead the collaborative along with the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission, whose cross-sector expertise and relationships with municipalities are invaluable to advancing this effort, and the State of Vermont Recovery Office, which brings amazing motivation, creativity, and a higher level perspective on what might be possible. So together, our organizations have applied for grant funds with the hope of sustaining the collaborative through the next phase of developing flood resilience projects, supporting our communities as they make hard decisions about where to invest limited resources, and continuing to build intermunicipal relationships. So I want to share, on behalf of the Winooski Flood Resilience Collaborative, a big thank you to all of our partner organizations who've been sharing so much of their energy to make this initiative a success. And those are the State Recovery Office, Vermont Emergency Management, Central Vermont and Chittenden County Regional Planning Commissions, Vermont DEC Rivers Program, Vermont River Conservancy, Winooski Natural Resources Conservation District, Friends of the Mad River, the University of Vermont Water Resources Institute, and the many, many individual municipal volunteers, such as the commission members, who've been dedicating countless hours of their personal lives figuring out how to provide a safer future for their communities, and perhaps even more hours trying to remember what CDBGDR stands for. This is not easy work, and we need and appreciate everyone involved. So I'm so glad to see our room full and so many people in my community really caring about this work. Thank you.
So isn't that kind of crazy? Before Michelle and the steering committee did that work, the people along the watershed didn't all ever get into a room together before. They had never been in a room together before. So partially tonight, this is a bit of a report card on the work we've been able to do, but I really want to say, well, it feels celebratory and we have to celebrate and the progress to be sustainable ourselves as humans. Really want to underscore we know how much work is left to do. We have a lot of work left to do. So with that vein, we're hearing from more folks. Sticking with Watershed, I want to introduce Ethan Ely. Where are you? Yes, thank you. He's been working with a team including Roy Schiff, Jessica at SLR Consulting, and this team has been just an incredible partner in the work of identifying and scoping these potential hazard mitigation projects. Never thought we'd be so excited about hazard mitigation projects, but we really are, for both Montpelier but also the surrounding communities, including sharing an update on the project 5 Home Farm Way that hopefully you all know a little bit about already. Come on up, Ethan.
Hey guys, Roy Schiff, SLR Consultant. I'm going to join Ethan just for a quick minute. Wanted to give a quick update, and it's great to be here. Just shortest commute of my life, living about a block away. Good to see a lot of neighbors. And I do just want to shout out like Michelle. She's been doing amazing work moving flood recovery forward, as well as all the organizations. So thanks to her and all the work she's been doing. So in a nutshell, we have these 2 pretty amazing flood mitigation projects that are going to be beneficial to chip away at reducing some of the flooding around the area. And you see the titles up here. Both of these are moving through the design process, 5 Home Farm Way with Preservation Trust Vermont. We're nearing the end of that project. So we'll be working with local stakeholders and doing some final design work. And then the Pioneer Street dam removal is part of a 4 dam removal project we're working on, taking out old dams that elevate flood levels. And we're working with the Vermont River Conservancy on those. So we'll be wrapping those up, the design piece. And Ethan's going to talk a little bit about the details of each of these, but I just wanted to give you a progress. And the other thing is, it's great to see everybody here in the energy. We are actively working on probably more than 10 flood mitigation projects funded through the flooding that came through the state, both in 23 and 24. This process takes some time. In fact, today we were talking about requested information on Montpelier's hazard mitigation grant application that we're providing back to FEMA. So stay the course. These are amazing projects. There's giant lists of projects now all around Montpelier, Central Vermont, and the whole Winooski Basin that create a pretty great roadmap for flood mitigation. So I think there's a lot to be optimistic about. And I'll turn it over to Ethan to talk about some of the details here.
Howdy, folks. So yeah, my name's Ethan Ely. I work with SLR Consulting. I've been working on both of these projects. They kind of started as separate projects, and as we've been working through the projects and trying to get grant funding, they've kind of been combined into one. So first, I'm just going to give you a little summary of 5 Home Farm Way. So this is a floodplain restoration project at 5 Home Farm Way, as the name describes. It's just over the Route 2 bridge, right along the railroad tracks, and the main aspect of the project is we're going to be removing a large amount of material from the floodplain to help reconnect it with the river, so the more natural floodplain elevation. The numbers on here are a little off. This is an earlier phase of the design. We're actually working through up to the 100% design at this point. The total volume we're looking at is about 24,000 cubic yards of material, so that's like 1,600 dump trucks. Lowering that down so that the flood can actually get up on this floodplain more often and hopefully store some more of that water and kind of slow it down as it enters Montpelier. So that is kind of the aspect of this project. It's about 12 acres, a little over 12 acres of restoration. And again, we're working on getting grant funding for that project, along with our other project, which is the Pioneer Street dam removal. I think you could switch slides. I don't know. So you're going to see in a sec. We're working on a design for removal of the Pioneer Street dam. That dam, as you can see right here, it's along the bike path, the Cross Vermont Trail, and this dam is falling apart. So this dam is no longer being used. It is falling apart. With each flood, another chunk or two falls apart. The goal of this project would be removing this dam and then removing about 2,500 cubic yards of sediment that's been piled up behind this dam over time. So removing that sediment, removing the dam is going to drop your water level along this stretch. And we found that, so this is actually just downstream of the 5 Home Farm Way project, and tying these together actually kind of extends the benefit you get from both a lot farther upstream. So that's one reason why we're kind of tying these together. You can see here in this simulation what it would kind of look like after that dam is removed. So we kind of picture a riffle forming below there and lowering the sediment and lowering the water level upstream for several thousand feet. Doing these projects together, we've been doing hydraulic modeling to kind of look at what the benefits are for those. And if you combine these projects, you're looking at several feet of reduction in water level of about a mile upstream from this project site. So that's, all of that water. Right now, the dam is kind of raising that water level, and that's dropping it back down to a more natural level, and providing more storage for flood and reducing those flood levels upstream. So the impact of this project can extend over a huge distance, and affect a pretty large area. I think that pretty much summarizes it up. This project currently is moving forward. It's at about 30% design and moving into the more advanced design, and our 5 Home Farm Way is close to 100% design at this point. So, yeah, thank you.
I think you're allowed to drop the mic, Ethan, when you say a couple feet of flood storage. That's what we are looking for here. Thank you all so much. So we're moving away from the watershed to the second bucket of work. So as the waters flow, they flow through our built environment. And the next main bucket of work that the commission is focused on with all of these partners is the adaptive downtown. And so, before I bring up our next speaker, a reminder that the commission really was comprised of 15 volunteers and 2 paid staff. Jillian, who is right here, amazing. We've been so lucky to have Jillian as an AmeriCorps Vista worker with us, and she's just been unbelievable. And everybody knows if you want to get something done, you get a leader. You get a fearless leader. And we've been so lucky to have that in John Copan's. Yeah! Woo-hoo! Right. Pretty sure I'm not allowed to be saying this, John, sorry, but John did not want me to call him out, but that's why we love him. A humble, effective leader who knows how to make connections and listen to the community. And so John is actually going to come up and bring us through the adaptive downtown bucket. Here's John.
Thank you, Allie, for those kind words. And to be clear, none of the work of the commission happens without the incredible team of commissioners. This is my one moment at the mic, and so and maybe actually we didn't really script this, but you should all raise your hands, commissioners, just for a second. Just raise your hands. This is a group of people with the perfect combination of expertise, joy, and deep love for this place called Montpelier. And it's been just awesome to get to work with that team. So adaptive downtown. I mean, let's think back to those forums two plus years ago. We were thinking about investing in an adaptive downtown, re-envisioning downtown, and addressing the housing crisis. Those were 3 priorities identified by the community 2 years ago. Here's 2 things we didn't know as a community 2 years ago. One is we didn't know it was going to take the U.S. Postal Service 400 plus days to open another post office in Montpelier. Absurd, right? 400. It's I think we all suffered through that, and just a credit, to our congressional delegation for the work they did, and to this community for really raising a substantial voice to get that post office reopened. The other thing we didn't know then is that not only would they not reopen a post office at 87 State Street, but the federal government has decided to do what they call disposing of that asset, which means they are essentially moving 87 State Street, the former post office, onto its next owner. This represents a critical juncture for the city of Montpelier. That building is about 70,000 square feet on 1.6 acres right in the middle of our downtown. What happens to that building in that location has tremendous implications for what we think of as our vibrant downtown here in Montpelier. The Montpelier Commission has stepped in to play a leadership role in trying to figure out how we redevelop that property, what comes next. We did some fundraising from some private sources. We also had successful conversations, and we have Senator Perchlik here tonight and Representative Casey, 2 great advocates in the legislature who raised $100,000 in appropriations so that we could do some of the due diligence work that we knew we would have to do to really figure out what comes next with that building. This is the one instance where actually having a federal government shutdown is a little bit helpful. Because one thing that we need is time. This project, I had no idea the complexity of sort of what happens with that building and with that property is immense. We've hired what we think are really the best real estate consultants in the state, a woman named Samantha Dunn and a gentleman named Jeffrey Glassberg, who have really been helping guide this process every step of the way. And we're right at the verge at this point of beginning some negotiations with the General Services Administration that ultimately is representing the federal government. What has been really important for us is we have very helpful partners. I already mentioned our legislators. Another really critical partner has been Secretary Lindsay Curley from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. We needed essentially either a municipal or state partner to be our negotiator on the other side of the conversation with the federal government. And Secretary Curley engaged the governor's office, and she stepped in to play that role. That was really critical, and they've been really helpful in that regard. Another great partner in this work has been Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission. They are the recipients of that $100,000 appropriation from the state of Vermont, and they're working closely with us to spend those dollars wisely on due diligence. That's both design work to think about what could happen with the property. It's legal work, because there's all sorts of legal questions. It's also environmental work, because we've got to be sure we have a sense of what the potential contaminants are. A building of that era has contaminants. It's a question of like, how severe are they, and what is the cost going to be to mitigate? So those are all things we're working through with many partners as we navigate this process. And I should also mention, at our side has also been the congressional delegation. At each step, we are keeping them engaged. They are really great partners in this work. We're right on the verge of sort of negotiating with GSA. That's what was just about to start when the federal government shut down. We will be negotiating on really two questions. How much do we pay for the building? And second, how do we address the question of potential contaminants in the building? Both are really important in figuring out the future. But just to, and I should have said this up front, when we think about what the value of that property is, we're thinking about flood resilience. It makes no sense to redevelop that property in a way that is not flood resilient. That's number one. Second, when we look at the balance of the parcel in addition to the building, we figure there's room for about 90 housing units on the backside of that. So that is a great opportunity for our downtown. And then finally, how do we put that building to good use for downtown Montpelier? How do we reactivate that building and create energy? There used to be federal employees working in that space. How do we know that our businesses and our downtown needs the vitality of foot traffic. So let's figure out how to put that building to use. And then I guess I'll finish this, and sorry I'm going on too long, but the last point is, this is a complicated endeavor, and to be honest, it's one with an uncertain outcome. We know we have to sort of be in the fight because this really matters for Montpelier, what happens, but at the same time, we've got a pretty tough path in terms of negotiating with the General Services Administration. So we don't know what those conversations are going to look like. Eventually, if we're not successful in negotiating a price and figuring out the right entity to carry the redevelopment work forward, the building will go to auction. And that's something we obviously have some reservations about, because at that point, it's really up to whatever individual buys that building and whether they have the wherewithal to carry it forward. But we stay tuned, I would say. Once that shutdown ends, we expect those negotiations to really kick in earnest, and there should be news soon after that takes place. So. And we actually, if you have like a particular interest in that 87 State Street project, we've got a mailing list special for that QR code, and there's also a QR code in your report. If you want to sign up for that mailing list, please do so. All right, I've got two more things around adaptive downtown to talk about. One of the projects, this is one that we have pursued grant funding for, and to be honest, just have not been able to find the right match in terms of funding. Is what we would love to do is work with our downtown building owners to essentially do flood resilience assessments of the 100 buildings that were impacted in the 2023 floods, essentially to give them a checklist for what they can do to those buildings to make them more flood resilient. We actually have a new application out to do a pilot of that. It wouldn't be all 100 buildings. It would be a collaboration with Waterbury and Barry, but we're going to continue to do that work because we know many of our downtown property owners, look, those buildings are vulnerable. We know a flood is going to happen again. There are investments you can make in those buildings. Just like we're about to do to City Hall, there are investments you can make in those buildings to make them flood resilient. We need to bring in the expertise to give those folks guidance. So that's a project that we need to continue working on. And then finally, I want to mention one last project that we are taking steps towards initiating, which is a River's Edge master plan for Montpelier. So yesterday, I was walking to the Shaw's, as I do pretty much every day, and there, walking across the Shaw's parking lot, was a gentleman in his waders carrying his fly rod. And I was like, I'm a fisherman, I'll confess, and I was like, did you catch anything? And he was like, yeah, I caught a brown trout. And he was surprised he caught a brown trout because apparently the water temperature is like under 45 degrees. But it was a reminder to me of the fact that we have a river that has brown trout in it right in the middle of our downtown. He literally below the dam, which I've actually heard is a good fishing spot, he caught that brown trout. I have no idea how he got to that river from Shaw's, how he got out of that river. Why am I sharing this little anecdote? Because we have these wonderful, beautiful rivers that flow through our city, and mostly we turn our back to them. And honestly, the time that we confront them most sort of abruptly and painfully is when they overtop their banks. We know we need to change that relationship of our city to our rivers right in our downtown. And that's why we're working with the city of Montpelier to initiate a River's Edge master planning process. We've applied for one grant yesterday, it was due yesterday, for the Lake Champlain Basin program for some planning funds, and then we'll apply for a municipal planning grant next week for this same project. And the goal is to initiate this planning process in 2026. And my encouragement to you all is stay tuned. A planning process is most effective when there is active participation from the full breadth of a community. That's what's going to make a planning process successful. So we've got a QR code again. Please get on the mailing list for that. We hope to launch that sometime in 2026. And now I'm going to hand the mic back to Allie. Thanks, everybody.
See, don't you just love John? It's hard not to. Oh man, the brown trout, that's gonna stick with us. All right, so the next person, okay, we're moving right along here, folks. We're on the third and last bucket of the commission's focus, which is, we know it's gonna happen again. I hate to, harsh our mellow here tonight, but we know it's gonna happen again. And so it's at our own peril that we don't understand that and take pains to be ready. So I'm going to introduce Mark Gwynn, a fellow commission member, to come up and talk about this. I remember the first meeting of this commission is the first time I ever met Mark. And he's like, I'm here for the emergency preparedness. Where do I go? Where do I sign up? And he has been a stalwart leader with countless hours in all dimensions of this, making sure that the next time, whatever it is in Montpelier strikes, we are going to be more prepared to take care of each other, ourselves, our neighbors. So Mark is going to talk to you about this and MC this final section.
Can everybody hear me back there? Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm briefly going to touch on MAPLE, which stands for the Montpelier Action Plan for Local Emergencies. The reason this came up, of course, was I think there was generally, sorry city folks are here, there was generally disappointment in the city's response to the flood, as if the city was supposed to just save everybody else, right? And that wasn't the case, of course. But what became really clear was that we needed a plan that involved the city, was centered around the city and began with the city, but that included the community at large. So we partnered with AC Disaster Consulting to help write this plan, and it starts with the local emergency management plan, which every town in Vermont has by law. So we decided to tackle this by building it around the LEMP, as it's called. So that process began with a lot of engagement, and so engagement with, well, all the stakeholders, but I want to thank some of the folks that came to the table to talk to us as we sort of gathered the stories and tried to figure out what went right, what went wrong, what could have gone better. And so some of those engagements included Washington County Mental Health, Just Basics, Good Samaritan, you'll recognize a lot of these names. Another Way, Elevate Youth, and then the folks that kind of heroically happened to step up at the right moment, the folks that ran the volunteer hub that stood up right after the flood. And I'm talking about Alec Ellsworth, I'm talking about Katie Trouts, and I'm talking about Peter Walk. And we often forget Marek Zajac, if I'm saying his name correctly, but he was a really big part of that too. And so a big thank you to all the people who lent their voice to figuring out what needed to happen next. So after that, we got to the work of writing the plan, and the plan really is a local emergency management plan plus, 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 with a lot of placeholders for further growth, further improvement. The plan was adopted in April by City Council, so we should also have a round of applause for City Council. And just this month, AC Disaster Consulting came back, and all of the city staff, leadership and city staff came together for a training around this plan. So this thing has not just been written, but been adopted by the city officially, and staff is now trained on it and working forward on continuous improvement of this plan. This plan by law, or some length, has to be readopted every spring right after town meeting day. So right now, we're in this sort of continuous improvement mode. I know that we're working on what are called annexes or incident plans. Alec is leading the efforts to really flesh out the volunteer hub and what that software looks like, what that process looks like, what the structure looks like. And all of those things are, most importantly, talking to each other and in a way that will unify the message that comes out from that for the rest of us to receive. So I also want to give particular thanks to Chief Libby, who has been a really instrumental partner in the city for helping us advocate for the importance of this plan and to really sort of move it through things. Alec Ellsworth and Katie Trouts, as I mentioned. Katie's not part of the city, but she's definitely part of this effort. Evelyn Prim, who is in charge of communications, has really been instrumental in these conversations as well. I want to thank all of the city staff for being engaged in this and recognizing the importance of it. And thank you, Kelly Murphy, for helping gather all of this together. Yeah, let's hear it. So with that, I'm going to try to segue. I'm sure there was a slide in here somewhere with a graphic. Would you advance that for me? Just press the space bar. Thanks. I'm the slide person, so when I'm up here, there's no slide person. Okay, once more, please. So Maple and the plan for us as a whole community starts with the city, but we quickly realized through the process of doing this that individual residents, businesses need to have their own plans, and those plans need to integrate, and we recognize the need for a few other things. So before we get to businesses, I'll just say that we had, no, leave it there. We've run a few Go Bag workshops, which is helping individual residents in Montpelier get themselves ready to evacuate or to move, and that's the beginning. John says all the time, and I love this phrase, individual preparedness adds up to community preparedness. So everything that each one of us can do in our homes is helping all of us as a community. And to talk specifically about some of the workshops the workshop that was done among businesses, I'm going to ask Sarah DeFelice, the owner of Bailey Road, to come up and talk a little bit about her experience with that.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Great. My name is Sarah DeFelice, and I'm the owner of Bailey Road here in Montpelier. My business has been here about 11 years, and I was one of the businesses who participated in the business preparedness workshop, along with, I want to recognize the other business owners, Splash Naturals, Jay Langdon, Bear Pond Books, Artisan's Hand, North Branch Cafe, Drawing Board, and Capital Stationers. We all took a morning and went to the library here in town and sat down and dove in. I also wanted to thank the commission for hosting this, because honestly, none of us really wanted to do this. And the people who showed up, Katie Trouts was amazing. She was there, Jillian was there, Mark Gwynn, and John as well. 3 things that I really took away from this was, one, it gave us time as a business community to reflect, and not just like the thoughts and feelings that came along with the crappiness of 2023, but also like, okay, when the water gauge was at 20 feet high at the Winooski Dam, did you have water in your basement? Did you have water on your first floor? Okay, that's good to know. In my basement, it was this. When it got to 23 at the Winooski gauge, I had 4 feet on my first floor. So we were able to kind of combine stories and figure out like different levels and how it would affect different parts of town, Langdon Street versus Main Street versus State Street. Another value that I found to this was the commission came with an open-ended guidebook for us that we could make into our individual plan, but there was guidance there, which was helpful. And then the other value I had from this workshop was just the accountability piece and a cheerleader to kind of guide you along. They asked, when do you want your draft done? I said July 1st, and I had that in my head. And Jillian and Mark checked in, and I knew I had like a deadline there. Once I created my full plan, and the plan includes, if I wasn't in town, like I wasn't the last flood, here's the notebook. It's going to be laminated. I need 6 teams. Team 1 needs to have heavy lifters. Team 2 needs to be organized. Team 3 needs this. So I know how many people I need, and then a list to check off in what each team does. So it's easy to help and ask for volunteers. So we had accountability, and then we had cheerleaders. Mark even came into my store, looked at my plan, and tried to walk through as if I wasn't there. And now I know not everyone knows what a rolling rack is. So, so thank you so much to the commission and fellow business owners who took the time to do this.
Thank you, Sarah. And I want to recognize that, you know, every business is at a different place, but by my count, I think there are at least 3 businesses that have fully formed, documented plans that are available in their store, or will as soon as I can run them through the laminator. Yeah. So will you advance a couple of times? Let's see where we are. Once more. And yeah, so we just want to, we want to give, one of the first things, it's easy for us in some ways to forget about it, because it was one of the first things that happened was that Montpelier did not have a long-term recovery group. And the long-term recovery group is the group that after the mucking out is done and the immediate response, the immediate recovery has happened, are helping make sure that people get all the way home. And not everyone has the resources to be able to do that for themselves. Not everyone has access to grants and loans and resources like that. And so long-term recovery groups really fill that need for everyone. So we want to recognize Suzanne Laguerre-Belcher, I don't know if she's here tonight, and everybody who is on the board of the Montpelier Disaster Recovery Network, which is now Montpelier's long-term recovery group. Let's give them a round of applause. Another thing that became really apparent that we were going to need, you can go one more, please, was that so many, while we were working on Maple, so many times the question would come up of like, well, who's going to do that? Who's going to spread that word? Who's going to get that information? Who is going to actually lift the shovel? The volunteer hub is going to coordinate a lot of that. The city is going to do a lot of that stuff. But ultimately, it's going to be you, and it's going to be me, and it's going to be our neighbors. And so what we really needed was neighbor-to-neighbor connections in small neighborhoods or neighbor nets. And so to tell us more about that effort, Jillian Turcola, our AmeriCorps Vista person and wonderful human being, is going to talk about NeighborNet. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Great. So Montpelier NeighborNet has really been my main focus as an AmeriCorps Vista. So I got here in March, but the planning effort really started in December with a group of commission members and also great community volunteers. So we have a superb coordinating committee that has really brought all of this together. So Montpelier NeighborNet is a grassroots organization that was founded, again, by the community members and the commission. It is supposed to support hyper-local neighborhood groups coming together for better communications, better social connection, and emergency preparedness and response, hence the reason it falls in this bucket. As I said, they've been planning since December, and this has really took off since we launched it in June of this year. I think some of you were there. We had a big ice cream social right out here on the green. There were about 200 people that showed up, and that felt like a huge success. Let's see, ice cream, 200 people. Oh, and tons of connection. Oh my gosh, the smiles on people's faces. We had games. It felt like a really, really big win. And since then, we have had a ton of engagement on both the coordinating committee's front. We have people raising their hands in their neighborhood saying, yeah, I think I could organize my neighbors a little bit. And then we have people who are saying, heck yeah, I want to be a part of my NeighborNet when it exists. So I will say that right now we have about 25 local NeighborNets. Can you show the map? And so here's some of our coverage right now. We have a lot of work to do, but such great pockets of community. So 25 local NeighborNets right now, another 25 coordinators who have said that they're interested, and more than 100 of you guys have said, yeah, I want to be a part of my NeighborNet. So we have a sign up on your way out. There's a QR code in your booklet as well as on the screen. No, not on the screen. Don't look there. But I would really like to recognize all of you, but specifically our coordinating committee. So if you could give us a raise of hand if you're on the coordinating committee or a local coordinator. They are really the people that are bringing all of this together. Yeah. Thank you. They're the ones bringing us together for hyper-local communications and emergency preparedness, and that's what this is all about. Thanks.
Right, I feel better prepared already. Thank you, Jillian, Mark, Sarah, Kelly for impromptu slides. This is how we get stuff done around here. Thank you all so much. So we're going to wrap up with a few final speakers, and I think we should be right on time. So the commission was created as a partnership between the City of Montpelier, Montpelier Alive, and the Montpelier Foundation. I actually see a lot of Montpelier Foundation folks here tonight. And so I just want to invite up our next speaker, Acting City Manager Kelly Murphy. And I just have to say, at every step of the way, the city has been a fantastic partner in all of these projects. So a huge thank you to Kelly for joining us tonight and being willing to give us a quick update on where things stand for this from the city's viewpoint.
Can you hear me okay? Great. Oh, nope. All right. So I'm going to get started here. I am incredibly thankful to be here with you all tonight and just to hear all the good work that is happening in Montpelier. And I wanted to share a few things from the city's perspective and just sort of really express our thanks for the partnership with the commission. And so for starters, I wanted to start on the municipal complex. And so we do have a submission in with FEMA right now for a 428 project. And essentially what that will do is give us sort of a lump sum of funding to be able to repair City Hall, the fire station, and the police station. I know that there's been some chatter out there on Front Porch Forum about the elevator. And so I wanted to provide a quick update on that. So we have ordered the parts, and we hope to have the elevator back up and running by the end of February. And we'll keep you posted on progress. But it's in the works. It's been a process, which all of the city projects have been kind of a a process, and we're really thankful that we're at the funding stage now. So we submitted this 428 project back in March with FEMA, and right now we're working with hazard mitigation to work through some of the kinks. So hopefully we'll learn more about what that funding structure looks like. But the total project cost would be about $27 million to rebuild. And so, what that will do, though, is protect our public safety operations, preserve historic structures, and then also make sure that Montpelier can function during future flood events, which is really important. We are here within the community to serve you. And so if we have a major flood and all of our services are downtown, then we need to be able to really work through that. There was mention of, a few hazard mitigation projects. Excellent presentations, hard act to follow. So I won't get into the 5 Home Farmway or Pioneer Dam, just to say that the city is partnering to make sure that that funding comes through. Then the other piece that I wanted to mention is we do have some applications in the works right now for the Community Development Block Grant DR funding. And I'm just going to list them for awareness, and then we'll keep you posted on progress there. So the Home Farm Way and the Pioneer Dam removal project is one of those applications, and it's for the match associated with that project. We're working on getting funding for the Bailey Dam removal, Elm Street culverts. So what we're looking for there is upsizing to handle the high water flows, which they did fail during the flood in 23. And then this beauty here. So I was between this and City Hall, and so we selected the wastewater treatment facility because it is a pretty awesome facility, so you should take a tour if you want to. But we almost lost the facility during the storm. And so one of the projects that we're working on is getting funding to build the road up to act as a berm around the wastewater treatment facility. And so that's one of these applications, super critical. We were really fortunate, but it got a little hairy. So we're working on making sure that we can kind of shore that up. And then the next thing that I'll mention that I think is really critical at this time is sort of the housing piece and resiliency. And so we're hopeful that there will be a second round of disaster recovery funds. And if there is, then we do intend to apply for infrastructure up at Country Club Road. The next piece that I want to mention has really impacted households within Montpelier. There are 6 households that either chose to elevate or receive buyouts. And so we are in the process right now of working with the homeowners that are elevating. One of those properties will be elevated this fall, and it's happening sort of right now as we speak. The other 2 will be happening in the spring. And then for the other 3 properties, they have accepted buyouts and have received the funding from FEMA, so they're good. But what you'll see within the community is that those 3 properties will then be demolished. And so one of the properties in particular that I just want to mention because I'm kind of excited about it because it's not a great thing, but it's an opportunity for a public park. That property is on Elm Street. And so we're working with parks, we're working with planning, we're working with the homeowner, and then there will be more community engagement around this at 127 Elm Street to transform the flood damaged lot into an accessible, educational, and healing public space designed around resilience, inclusion, and environmental education. The property owner did give us some really great ideas about what they would like to see done at that property. And I just would like to highlight that because it's just, I think, a sweet opportunity in the recovery to kind of work through just the process of change. So those things will be happening soon. And then the last thing that I just wanted to say in closing is the city is incredibly thankful for the partnership with the commission and for the community. We have, been there throughout the process and will continue to be there. And so in closing, I just want to say, that we're not returning to the past, but we're investing in a stronger future. And you can kind of see that in all the work that's being done. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, to close us out for the evening, I'm going to bring up our final speaker, my role model for what civic engagement looks like. He's giving me the face. I love that. See, this is the leadership we like. Humble and truthfully, Ben Doyle was the original chair of this commission, was basically the executive director volunteer before we hired John, got us off and going and set the standard for what this should be, and is also on the board of the Montpelier Foundation and now is on city council. And he's an upstanding gentleman. I can't wait to have him up here to wrap up the evening. Thank you all so much.
Hi, my name is Ben Doyle. I'm questioning some of my choices in life, but I'm really happy to be here and really to think about that question, what's next, right? Where do we go? And the truth is, this is not the end, even though it's the end of a 2-year charge of a commission. It's really the beginning of the continued work that we need to do. First, I want to just say, like, how do you get involved in all of this? In the programs, there's QR codes that will specialize the updates that you get based on project. If you want to know more about East 7th State Street, if you want to know more about the Watershed Alliance, if you want to know more about Maple and Montpelier NeighborNet, that's a great way to get involved. But you can also just call us, email us, right? Talk to your commissioners and your neighbors and find out more. But I want to just say that at the first actual community convening that we had of this group, I remember saying that while this work is extremely urgent, it's also the work of decades. That means that even though this commission's over in coming to an end of its 2-year charge, the work doesn't stop tonight or tomorrow or next month or next year. It continues because it has to. And at that convening 2 years ago, I also said that if we want to go fast, we should go alone. But if we want to go far, we should go together. That's why the partnerships you learned about tonight and the additional ones we'll be announcing in the coming months are so important. There's more news to come on that, and it's exciting. So please stay tuned and stay involved. But really, my job here tonight is just to say thank you. I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for the soup and desserts. I'm grateful to Red Hen Bakery. I'm grateful to the Hunger Mountain Co-op for donating cornbread, to Greenway Institute for donating the space and hosting us, for Kiana at the Arts Hub, Montpelier Performing Arts Hub, to the Bridge for being our media sponsor. And I have some specific people organizations and people I really need to thank. I really do want to thank the City of Montpelier for their partnership. Honestly, when people stand up and say, hey, we want to form a non-governmental commission on the future of resiliency and recovery in your city, and that can be a little bit threatening. And the truth is the city embraced that and has always been open-minded and a great partner at the table and working forward on that. I also want to just say, we all know Montpelier Alive, what an incredible organization they are. Montpelier Alive, the commission is not an organization, right? It's not a 501c3. It's not even like really a thing. It's a group of people with no authority or power who said, we're just going to get together for 2 years and we're going to work really hard to make good things happen. And that's what we've tried to do. And we were able to do that because Montpelier Alive served as a fiscal sponsor, which allowed us to raise donations to hire John and Jillian to do the hard work every day. And so without Montpelier Alive and those funders, none of this could have happened. And I just really want to say thank you to Katie and to the Montpelier Foundation Board. And then I want to say thank you to the Montpelier Foundation. I see Sarah is here. A lot of foundation members are here. That's like the greatest foundation that you need to hear more about. Really trying to preserve a great future for the city of Montpelier. And they were really the key funder on this effort. In partnership with Montpelier Alive, they raised $2 million to support local businesses after the flood, right? And then in addition to that, they raised money for this commission to do the work that you've seen more about tonight. And so it's really important, and I just want to thank the Montpelier Foundation Board for the work that they did. And I also want to thank those funders, including Union Mutual, Vermont Mutual, National Life, Northfield Savings Bank, East Rise, and many individuals in this room. I see you. People who we knocked on your door and you said, we need help making this happen, and you stepped up. And I just really want to thank all of you. So can we please give a round of applause, please? And then finally, I want to thank all of the commissioners. After a community-wide conversation that over 1,000 people participated in, these folks raised their hands and said, I want to help in this way. They've spent hours, months, even years digging into various projects and supporting John, who has truly been an exceptional leader. Collectively, they are one of the finest group of people I've ever had the privilege to work with, and I thank them for their leadership, friendship, and service. I also want to acknowledge a commission member who isn't here today but should be celebrated, Nathan Suter. Nathan was a moral compass for our group, someone who asked hard questions, but also lifted people up with encouragement. He made invaluable contributions to our strategy and our work. He brought food to the meetings. He made heavy moments lighter. He believed in this city. I had thought briefly that maybe I would suggest a moment of silence in his honor, but that doesn't seem fitting because Nathan was rarely silent. He spoke up, he did the work, he lifted others up so they could do the work too. And I think that's how we can best honor his service to the commission, speak up, and continue the work. And finally, I want to thank all of you. And finally, I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and for building the kind of resilient community that we want to live in. I mean, look around this room. Look at your neighbors and the people who care about this community and who love it, who came out tonight. And you know, I really believe that we manifest our intention through our presence. And by showing up with intention, we can manifest the kind of resilient Montpelier that our kids and grandkids can call home. And to close us out with the evening, I would love to turn it over to Mark and Katie, who are going to bless us with their talents. Thanks, everybody.
We're gonna sing a song. We tune because we care. Come on, children, let's go down to the river. Deliver all the thanks that we can give her. Our work has just begun. There's plenty to be done. So come on, everyone, let's go back home. Wild Onion River land, lift me up and set me down inside my neighbor's hands. However far I roam from Surrey's Golden Dome, I always will come home to my Onion River land. Come on, people, let's go down to the river. She is, but has not always been our friend. She took some of us away, but the rest of us will stay and thrive here come what may until the end. Wild Onion Riverland, lift me up and set me down inside my neighbor's hand. Our work has just begun. There's plenty to be done. So come on, everyone, back to our Onion River land. However far we roam from this old mountain stone, we always will come home back to our Onion River land. Yes, we always will come home back to our Onion River land.